Sanhua is a free 4-star character that we get from the login event and is one of the strongest hybrid DPS characters in the game due to her low field time, good personal damage, and strong buffs. In this video, I'll cover everything you need to know about her, including her kit, sequences, best weapons, echoes, teams, rotations, and more. Without any further ado, let's jump right into it. Starting with her kit, Sanhua's basic attacks are a 5-hit combo, but they're never used. The most important part of Sanhua's kit are these icicles that she generates from her intro skill, resonance skill, and resonance liberation. Her resonance skill and liberation have some good damage multipliers and generate concerto energy as well. Also, the burst has a very low energy cost of 100. When you hold Sanhua's basic attack button, you will see a pointer moving on her forte circuit. If you release the button when the pointer falls on the blue portion of the circuit, Sanhua will cast a special heavy attack that will detonate all these icicles and make them explode, dealing good damage and generating tons of concerto energy. The heavy attack itself deals pretty good damage, and the explosion damage from the icicles is considered resonance skill damage. Initially, the blue portion on her forte circuit is very small, but as you cast her intro skill, resonance skill, or liberation, the blue portion will expand. The 5th basic attack can also expand the blue portion, but it is never used, so you don't need to remember this. Sanhua's outro skill gives 38% basic attack damage deep into the next character you switch into, which is great for characters that deal considerable damage from their basic attacks. Keep in mind, the buff gets removed if you switch out the character. Her first inherent passive increases the damage dealt by her resonance skill by 20% for 8 seconds after casting her intro skill. Her second inherent passive increases the damage dealt by her forte circuit by 20% for 8 seconds after casting her 5th basic attack. Even though the buff is nice, this passive is useless as you won't be using Sanhua's basic attacks unless you wish to use her as your on-field DPS. It is not ideal, but you can if you wish to give her more field time. So, it's okay, even if you don't unlock this inherent passive. For her talent priority, level her forte circuit, followed by her liberation, then resonance skill, and lastly the intro skill. Skip the basic attacks as we won't be using them unless you wish to use her as your main on-field DPS, which again is not ideal. The intro skill can be skipped too as it has low damage multipliers. Moving on to her sequences, Sanhua's initial sequences are not that great, and to be honest, they are pretty much useless. Sanhua's first sequence is locked behind her 5th basic attack, just like her second inherent passive. It gives 15% crit rate for 10 seconds after using the 5th basic attack. This is a useless sequence as we don't use Sanhua's basic attacks. Her second sequence just reduces the stamina consumption of her forte circuit's heavy attack and increases her interruption resistance for 10 seconds after casting her resonance skill. Her third sequence increases her damage dealt by 35% to enemies with HP below 70%. This is conditional but a decent upgrade. Her 4th sequence restores 10 resonance energy after casting her liberation, and the damage of her next forte circuit's heavy attack is increased by 120% if cast within 5 seconds. The 5th sequence increases the crit damage of the explosion done by her icicles by 100%. Also, if you fail to detonate these icicles, they will still explode. The 6th sequence makes her even stronger as a hybrid DPS. After an icicle is detonated, all team members' attack is increased by 10% for 20 seconds. This can be stacked twice, which means a 20% attack buff. Moving on to Sanhua's weapons, the best weapon to use on Sanhua is the standard banner 5-star sword, Emerald of Genesis. This weapon gives crit rate and has a high base attack, which is amazing. Additionally, from its passive, it gives 12.8% energy regen and an attack increase after casting resonance skill. This attack increase can be stacked twice. With Sanhua, we can only get one stack, but it is not bad. If you don't have this weapon, you can use the Commando of Conviction, which is unarguably the best 4-star sword as it gives a ton of attack percent and you can keep a permanent uptime on the buff from its passive as you only need to cast an intro skill to trigger its passive. Lunar Cutter is another amazing weapon option as it provides lots of attack percent and is pretty close to the Commando of Conviction. Looming Gloss is a great option for its attack stats and it provides a heavy attack damage bonus from its passive, which is not bad. If you don't have any of these weapons, you can use the craftable weapon, Sword 18. It gives attack percent. Its passive is kind of wasted as it is very conditional. You need to have HP below 40% to activate it. And lastly, if you are a new player, you can just use the R5 Sword of Night as a placeholder. The Scale Slasher weapon is an amazing option for sub DPS characters, but Sanhua generates enough concerto energy by herself and her burst energy cost is very low, so she doesn't need this weapon. Moving on to her echo sets and stats, just a quick reminder, if you are enjoying this video so far, do consider liking this video and sharing it. Subscribe for more such content. The best echo set for Sanhua is the 5-piece Moonlit Clouds set with the Impermanence Heron Echo skill. This is generally the best echo set for sub DPS characters, as the 5-piece of this set gives an attack % buff and the Heron Echo skill gives a 12% damage increase to the next character you switch into upon using the outro skill. If you wish to use her as your on-field DPS, you can use the 5-piece Lingering Tunes with the Mech Abomination Echo skill or the Freezing Frost Echo set with the Lampilaman Echo skill, or mix and use 2-piece of Freezing Frost and 2-piece of Lingering Tunes. Usually, for DPS characters, the Lampilaman Echo skill is not the best choice as it takes 3 seconds to do its attacks. But since Sanhua's basic attacks don't deal much damage, you can use the Echo skill during her skill downtime to get some good damage out of it, and it freezes the opponents as well. Playing her as a main DPS is not ideal, but you can still make it work if you wish to give more on-field time to Sanhua. But do keep in mind, she will fall behind in terms of damage when compared to a dedicated main DPS with similar investments. Even if you are using her as a quick swap DPS, using the Moonlit Cloud set will be more beneficial. Now, let's talk about Sanhua's energy requirements. Sanhua's burst is a very important part of her kit and you need to cast it in every rotation. She has a very low energy cost and has good energy restoration, so you can get away with no energy regen. The 10% energy regen from 2-piece Moonlit set is enough to get her ultimate back on time. For her echo stats, crit rate or crit damage on 4-cost echoes. On the 3-cost echoes, you can go double glacial damage, or a combination of 1 glacial and 1 attack % is not far behind. And attack % on 1-cost echoes. You can also go for a 4-4-1-1-1 pattern as we have another 4-cost echo from the Moonlit set, that is the Bell-born Geochelone. On 1 4-cost echo, go for crit rate and crit damage on the other. And attack % on the 1-cost echo. This is a worse option but it is not bad. And this set combination can be used on other sub DPS characters as well. For her echo substats, prioritize crit rate or damage, followed by attack % and flat attack. Heavy attack, resonance liberation, and skill damage bonus are also great. 1 or 2 energy regen substat rolls can be nice too. Moving on to her rotations, Sanhua's rotations are very simple. You just intro into her, use her resonance liberation, then her skill, and her special heavy attack of her Forte circuit to detonate the icicles. Use the special heavy attack again to fill the remaining portion of the concerto bar. Use the Heron Echo skill and swap cancel. Casting the special heavy attack a second time can be difficult as the blue portion will be very small. If you are having trouble doing it, you can follow the next rotation. If you are using Sanhua with Baiji or with a DPS character who needs echo swap cancels, you will not be able to get an intro on Sanhua, leading to less concerto energy regen, so you need to build up her concerto in parts. Let me show you with an example. I am using Havoc Rover, Sanhua, and Baiji for the showcase. Baiji can only buff the next character you switch into after activating her outro, so switching to the main DPS after her concerto bar is filled is necessary.